Round two. The first game is another absolute belter. On a Friday night, it's going to be Crusaders versus the Highlanders. I don't know if you want to be the team first in the Crusaders after they got hammered by bonus point by the Chiefs, but here we are. The Highlanders are going to go back to back and see if they can't beat that 60-point drubbing that they let through in defense. You got Cullen Grace's collarbone injury, which obviously means he's highly unlikely to play. You got Jonah Recchi, who's was ruled out pre-game. He's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks with a stress fracture of his foot. And obviously Marino Michele, the fact that he couldn't play on, I'd say he's very, very unlikely to play. As I said, at least kind of 3 or 4 weeks, I would think, for him. And on the returns, you got Sammy Whitelock, missed game 1 with concussion. They will need his leadership, I would think.
Yeah, look, as you touched on the Highlanders, you don't want to be bouncing against an angry Crusaders side. I'd be horrified if I were them. If it doesn't matter what the odds are, I'd be throwing all your money that you own that the Crusaders are going to beat the line. Crusaders, the one thing they need to bring in, I think, is they need to add some punch into their back line. Do they go Goodhue back into 12, Havili back into 12 with Goodhue, put Fainga'anuku into the centres and shift Enor to the bench? I don't think Enor is in the form he was when he first broke onto the scene. And Will Jordan, Harry, how far off is he? He's still a few weeks off.
I mean, I can only hope that he's going to be back this week, but obviously he's dealing with his migraine issue, so I don't think there's been any real clarity about the fact that he could be back or not. So I don't think that's actually been said. But I agree. I just think the issue with them at the moment is, number one, in the front, no Leo Willie not really having maybe the same impact that the established back row does. And then on top of that, I think also just Jack Goodhue and Braden Enor have both had knee injuries in the last couple of years. Neither have the pace or maybe the ability to break through the line that they have in the past. So they do need to find that from somewhere. Severito, I expect to go hunting for the ball a hell of a lot more. And the two changes I would put is there's no Will Jordan, of course. I'd put settle down Milani Nanai, hashtag get Nanai on, straight on to fullback, David Havili 12, Goodhue 13. That's the no-brainer for me. And I actually would put Sione Havili in the back row at 6, Blackadder to 8, and I'd probably leave Christian Leo Willie on the bench as he's just getting used to the side.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The other question is, could you shift someone like Barrett to 6? And then you've got Whitelock coming into the locks as well, give you a bit more height in the line out. Not that their line out was bad on the weekend, but it can shore up the line out and the scrum a little bit. And then even bringing someone like Havili into the back row as well. If you could shift Blackadder to number 8, you could put Havili at number 8, but they do need that little bit more punch as well. We said it in the backs, but yeah, in that back row, I think is important. Yeah. They also, I think they just need to find that way to adapt to this game plan. The speed of this game. They're a really good structured side. They normally love unstructured play like any Kiwi side does, but for some reason the speed of the game didn't work in their advantage last week. Highlanders, notoriously a team that you think would do good with unstructured sort of fast play, but Crusaders, they've got a match here really to insert themselves back into, the name on everyone's lips by smashing these Highlanders here.
Jeez, it hasn't taken long for us to write off the Highlanders, but look, for the Highlanders, I think there's a couple of things here. First of all, I thought Thomas Umaga Jensen had absolutely no impact last week, and that's from a man that we were absolutely expecting to get them over the game line time and time again. I could see they did try and use him on set piece to try and set the play up, and he was at least getting some go forward beating the ad line, but he wasn't breaking tackles. He wasn't really creating much, so they obviously need to give him a little bit more space to work.
Yeah, he didn't look very confident. I don't know what it was. He did take it in tight, but at other times he didn't really seem to back himself as much either and insert himself into the game. I'm not sure the result last week is what he needs to get himself back into gear. We're not convinced with Josh Timu. Josh Timu did do well ball in hand last week, but Scott Gregory in the centres, he offers a lot for them as a connection to the players out wide, as a solid runner in tight. He offers a lot around the paddock. So if we shift Scott Gregory into the centres, you can bring Garden Bashop onto fullback. There's just a few changes there that I think could be really positive for them. It also gives you the ability to shift among a Jensen. He can play 12, 13. Does he play off someone like Scott Gregory sitting into 12, which could help insert him into the game? One concern about that is if we put Connor Garden-Bachop at 15, his defence was woeful on the week, and he made 2 from 6. Now, that's probably not what you need against the Crusaders.
Yeah, look, I don't know why we would shift Connor Garden-Bachop to fullback though.
We were saying if we bring Scott Gregory was playing wing, wasn't he?
No, Scott Gregory didn't play at all. You're thinking about Sam Gilbert, who played at fullback. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think they'll probably leave Gilbert at fullback. Although it does hurt me to see that he takes all the kicks off Mitch Hunt, who was meant to be the Iceman with his goal kicking about 2 years ago, and now apparently isn't even their first choice. But I won't dwell on that because that's a personal issue on my fantasy team. Look, who do you think will replace Marino Micheletu? Is it going to be Sean Withy, James Lenches, Hugh Renton, or the new man, Nikora Broughton?
Look, there's a lot, that they could do. There's a lot of names that you've just thrown up. I'm a fan of Lenches, and I think he'd be not a bad person to bring in. He's quite a mature, experienced player, very good in the breakdown. I think he could slow that ball down for, quick clearance for the Crusaders as well. So he's probably the man I'd be bringing in.
Particularly after how the last week went out, I think that's the right choice for sure, and put Withy back on the bench. And obviously no Nareki now that they've got a little bit of time to plan. Personally, who's the guy that gets the spot in the 23? Is it going to be Martin Bogado again, who we should mention missed out on a gimme try last week because the Capitan knocked it on? It would have been great to see him score on debut. Or can we see someone like Darwai get a run?
Look, they gave Bogado the chance last weekend, so he's probably the man for me. I think he did enough, in small glimpses to earn him that jersey. I don't think they rushed Darwai back in.
No, I agree. On to the Rebels versus the Hurricanes. So new injuries on this one. The only concern will be for Geordie Barrett for a hip pointer. He took a very big hit from Fraser McWright late in the game. He was pretty sore afterwards and limping around. But, at time it can rule people out, but for a week or two. But, he's a tough bloke, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does play. No one else really from the Rebels, and no extra players coming back in that we're aware of either. So settled squads.
Yeah, Harry, I think for the Rebels, they obviously had some promising 7/6, 7/8s in their back row with Hardwick at 8, Wilkin at 7, and Josh Kemeny at 6. All can cover 7, but I think they lacked a little bit of punch in their forwards, especially throughout that second half. Do you think it's something that was good for them to bring Pony, Hosea, Tamati Ioane off the bench? It didn't really seem to give them the lift that we expected it would in that second half. Do you think they need to start one of these or a combination of these guys, or how do they get that punch in the forwards?
Yeah, look, they did nothing when they came on. They really, if anything, the team went backwards, to be honest, for 3 established players. I think Tamati Ioane is going to have to ride the bench because he just didn't make the impact that he needs. So I'm not convinced yet that he actually looks any fitter than last year. I thought his body would have been in better shape, to be honest. Pone and Hosea, I could see both of them starting. I thought Sammy Talakai was exceptional in the scrum in particular, but obviously doesn't offer a lot around the park. So I think Pone, for that reason, might be getting a chance. And Trevor Hosea, we expect him to be their first choice lock, and instead they've got Tuiana Tualima, who's come across from the Reds originally, starting in there. I think that Hosea should be partnering Canham for sure.
Sure. And how do they get the ball to Monty Ioane more? That for me, it was a big question mark for them last week. Was Monty seemed to be going looking for the ball, like he was shifting to one wing, shifting to the other wing, literally looking for the ball, trying to find himself in a position to get involved, but the ball seemed to always go the other direction. I don't know if it's that he hasn't been around the side long enough. He tried to insert himself with pick and goes. And getting himself involved, which is something that we saw so much from Corambetti. Why can the Rebels not find a way to get these strike weapons involved?
for Monty's case, he's been with the team for one game. So I actually thought that he made himself very, very available. So I would like to think that will get better and better. If I was him, I'd just be hanging on Carter Gordon's hip every single training session and make sure he's the main man for me. Stacey Ely, he played at 12, but I don't really remember seeing him in the entire game. So obviously it's not trying to partner up with Stacey Ely, to be honest. And Reece Hodge is probably one of the hard line punches that they probably need out a bit wider. So yeah, look, I think he's just got to stay on Carter Gordon's hip, look for that inside ball. Monty's has got some very good feet, so I think that's an opportunity for him. And then other than that, they just need to understand how to actually, if they do get some front foot forward ball, which to be honest, I don't think is going to happen often this week, then give Monty the ball in some time and space.
Yeah, give him the ball. That's it. The other question for me is they do have some young players that can be some strike weapons for them. Do we see someone like Glenn Vire who get a bit of a run at 12 if we see Illy stay quiet like he did last week?
Yeah, look, I've got no problem with them rotating around. They just need to pick and stick. They struggle so much in terms of their cohesion in the squad. Obviously, Nick Euster is a new man in there as well. Lockie Anderson missed all last year. It's just a lucky dip, to be honest with you. I think James Tuttle probably starts at 9 when Lowrens didn't probably have as much impact as they would have liked. But whoever they start at inside centre, if it's not Ely, he's going to be doing it all year. So Glenn Vire, I'm not sure we've actually seen him play enough at centre to put him into that position just yet. But I wouldn't be upset to see it, to be honest. If we push to the Hurricane side, I thought Peter Lackey and, for that matter, Flanders was pretty quiet. They probably didn't have the impact that they wanted. And, we joked about Karifi being immediately yellow carded, but the Hurricanes scored 2 tries when they were down a man. So maybe it was a tactic. I expect Karifi to start this week, particularly with the way that the Rebels attack the breakdown with Hardwick and Wilkin. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think he has to be involved. Just his ability to disrupt that breakdown. The other one for me is Cam Roygaard. He is a promising player, but he was very quiet. Jamie Booth really picked up the pace when he came on. So we thought he should be a starter, at least early on in the season. Yes, Roygaard has a big future ahead of him, but I think Jamie Booth should really be starting in that 9 jersey for them after last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just thought as well, probably worth mentioning, Adam Morgan's probably got one more week with a jersey as he is at number 10. Ruben Love and Brett Cameron both looking back like they're going to be back next week. So I think it's going to be really good to see him really need to own the jersey a little bit more. I thought he looked pretty nervous and didn't have a great first outing. So we'll see how we go there, but I think he needs to have a big game. And we haven't done tips, Noel, so let's do the Friday night tips very quickly. Crusaders versus Highlanders. Who are you got and by how many?
Crusaders by 38.
Wowza, that's a big score. I don't think it can be that bad. I think it might be like 22 points. No, 24. I'll go 24. And the other one was, of course, the Rebels versus the Hurricanes. I'm going to go first here. I'm going to give the Hurricanes a 28-point win.
Yeah, this is going to be tough. I'm gonna say I really want the Rebels to pull something out. So they're going to.
It is Super Round, mate. That's a Melbourne home game. It's going to be a huge atmosphere for them.
I think that means nothing for them. I personally think they're probably going to lose by 30. This is going to be a shellac.
Nice. All right. Very good. All right. Let's push on to Saturday's game. Moana Pacifica versus the Chefs. So new injuries. You had the front rowers, Sasefo Apakatoa and Ezekiel Lindenmuth, both injured during the week at training. No more details about exactly what that is yet. Atani Nanai Septuro as well. He obviously did his hammy. He pulled his hammy in the warm-up or during I think it was on the day, so they pulled him quite late. So obviously watch the space there. And returning, I think Tima Fainga-Anuku missed round 1 due to concussion, so he's definitely in the mix for this week, you would think. Nels, what do you have on for this game?
Well, look, the biggest question, we heard in the preseason that they want to stick and pick a bit more this season. So is this some... What was that? What are you rolling your eyes about?
Stick and pick, eh?
It's pick and stick, enough. It doesn't matter. It's stick and pick and stick. They want to do all 4 of those things. So, yeah, well, I think this is their chance to show it. They started last week really well. So give a lot of these guys a chance to have a run around again. Tima Fainganuku, as you touched on, he might be someone we see come into the starting side for me, with Famaya being the one that misses out.
Yeah, and the other one for me was Jono Ma'u had his debut last week. I know the commentators were pretty big on him. I thought he did have a few good moments, but Alamanda Matunga was obviously one of the first choice back rowers last year as well. He was coming back from injury via the bench, so I think he's a good chance to actually push for some game time there as well. And then finally for me, I think just the absolute punch needed is going to come from Levi Amor and Tavatava Naye. They just have so much impact, and their first two tries where they just each of them in runs individually decided that the whole team wouldn't be allowed to bring them down. They just keep their leg drive and take an extra 15 meters. If they can do that kind of thing against the Chiefs, it's going to give them some real go forward ball and maybe a shot.
Someone's got to test the waters that they're drinking, because something's not right there. Those two men are machines. But yeah, it's that transition of how do they take that dominant tight intact from those two players, just shrugging people off, and then how do they transition into, attacking kind of looser play off the back of that, because they definitely add the punch more so than potentially almost anyone in this competition. But it's that transition into, directing the players around and scoring off the back of each of those opportunities. Tomatini is coming back potentially, or he's not far off. No, he's not injured. Or I was going to say, he's an option there.
Where are you getting any of this? He's got a hamstring injury from the last trial, and I think he's out for a little while.
Okay, you don't have any timeline. So my
question I just when I originally read it, I think the page that I linked said that he was out for a while. Like, it sounded like it was a relatively bad hammy injury, so I think we'll see Anari get a few more goes.
Yeah, I was going to say, the question here is, will he be fit, or do we see Anari step up? Hopefully it's Anari stepping up then.
Man, the other one I have is Ray Nuia. He's out with a neck injury. I hope that's just neck tightness. So hopefully we get to see him come back through. But, it's one of those teams that's very hard to pick sometimes on what they're going to do.
For the Chiefs, we're saying that we're tipping Poihipi to start at outside centre off the injury to ALB. So Nankerville shifting into 12. Is that what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. That's I'd say that's bang on. I don't know why they would go with anything else. Although the other thing is that Joshua can play 12 as well, so I guess there is a chance that he could play there. But it's I think that they should put Poihipi at 13, shoot it to wing, maybe bench Alamalo just to take some pressure off him, DMAC to 15 and Josh to 10. So just change the whole back line after the win, basically.
We all know you want Joshua. Look, in all honesty, Shooter did very, very well at fullback. So I'd probably be sticking with him at fullback. But yes, I do think Poihipi and Nankerville, that's a pretty solid centre partnership as well. So I'd like to see that.
And the other one for me was George Dyer. I'm just not convinced he'll continue to start over John Ryan. Obviously, the experienced man. John Ryan maybe has 40 minutes in him at his age coming across from a competition that is not Super Rugby. But wouldn't surprise me if those guys kind of at least share game time. I don't know who starts and who doesn't, but I would have thought John Ryan would be your kind of rock solid defender, scrummager, and then George Dyer comes on the second half. So you might see a little bit of a change there. But mind you, I've got to say that they're an impressive scrum regardless.
Yeah, definitely. How do you see this one going?
It's going to be the Chiefs. They're in red hot form in that first week, and Moana, they were impressive. I thought they were a lot better than expected. But for me, I'm going to go the Chefs by probably about 10 points, 12 points. Call it 12.
They're very close to what I was thinking. I'm going to say 14 points.
Very good. The Andrua versus the Waratahs. Now, this is the round one fixture last year, round two this year. So they get to meet each other early in the season. No injuries on the Drua front that we're aware of, but Angus Bell, as we said, is gone for the season with a big toe injury. Returning, there's just maybes everywhere. Not a lot of clarity from either team, but Meli Deranalangi has been coming back from an ACL injury. Vilive Miramira and Meli Tuni, obviously both missing in the first week, both chances as well. I don't think Meli Tuni will really push the top front row, but Vilive Miramira may well find himself in the number 7 jersey as well. So they're all chances, but not a lot of clarity. They did say a week ago that they're back, whatever that means.
Yeah, what about Vota?
Yeah, and just nothing. We've heard absolutely nothing on Votter, so I hope so. But I know you're enjoying Yosefo Masi playing there as well. So we wait and see, and I guess it's the mysteries. It's like when we had the Sunwolves, we just don't hear anything from them.
The big question, I think, for the Drewers, do they stick with Teti Teller at fly half, Harry, after that performance, or do they give Muntz a chance there right now?
Yeah, you sack Teddy Teller, mate. You can't play that bad and then not get dropped. So Caleb Muntz 100%. But I will just say before we push on to any more of that, finishing off for the Tars, for the ones that are maybe returning as well. Ned Hannigan, they think is in thereabouts. All these guys thereabouts, I should say, but coming back for his MCL injury. Joey Walton from his back operation. Tian Takapulu adding some depth, hopefully, from his knee injury at prop. And Dylan Peach as well is very, very close for his quad tear.
Yeah, so what do you do? Yeah, we sack Teddy Teller, bring on Caleb Muntz. The other questions we've already touched on. We don't know where Votter is, so I think we got to stick with Marcy then in outside centre. If Votter comes back, Harry, did Marcy do enough that you shift him to a wing, or do we see him drop down into the bench?
Oh man, I would 100% start him. I thought his form was fantastic. I don't know if he's actually been training for them in the outside back, so I guess it depends how much they've been moving him around in the preseason. If he's Votter's been gone all preseason, then it would make sense that he hasn't had the opportunity out there to get comfortable. But as I said before, I thought Ravadamata was excellent. So maybe Samasomo Vodre is the only chance that he could have out on the left wing.
And also, we had a late signing for them, the Sledgehammer, Aroni Sau. He's come into the squad. He hasn't been there long as well, but he could be someone we see pop up in coming weeks. Just an aggressive defender, but they do have some options there, especially in the outside backs.
Yeah, I think he played for them in the NRC. Is that right? Before he left, and he's been playing second division over in France, I think it was.
He's mainly just been hitting people really, really hard. So the Sledgehammer is a good name for him, but that's probably
it's a great nickname. But that's if he wasn't called the Sledgehammer, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have mentioned him on the podcast.
He was very good in the NRC before leaving, and he actually had a breakout.
Bit of a different kind of competition, though, isn't it?
He's been doing well overseas, but yeah, he's a name that we might see pop up. But there is a lot of talent in those outside backs.
What do you think of Ileasa Doroasese? I thought he struggled to impose himself. He looked very, very big, but I just wanted to start the chant now. How loud can we cheer for Kitione Talinga to get him back at fullback?
Yeah, look, in Doroasese, we were kind of looking closely during the trials and stuff. I don't think he found a way to insert himself into this game very well and really wasn't solid in defence. So I think he'll probably get another shot there. I think maybe they do need to pick and stick a little bit, but he needs to really step up from last week if he wants to stay.
And the Tars have got some problems in the front row. First of all, my first point is who the F starts at loosehead. Maybe not this week, but maybe Harry Johnson-Holmes is going to have to become a loosehead again this year. What do you think?
Look, I think Lambert did really well around the paddock, but I think you touched on it. Wasn't very solid necessarily in the set piece. Holt's struggling a little bit as well. So it just depends on, who they get more out of from those two on the field. To me, it actually looked like it was Lambert last weekend. So if he does that again, in the next week or two before HJH comes back, I'd be seeing HJH fill that tight head role, both quite mobile around the paddock, which is something that suits the Waratahs as well. Mind you, I have liked Holtz, during last season as well. So
yeah, I was excited to see him, but he came off at halftime for Faulkner. I think the writing was on the wall that they just weren't coping at scrum time. And what about, do you think the Tars will rotate Will Harris and Langy Gleeson, or will they continue with the Gooper tactic?
Look, for me, this is a game that the Gooper tactic, and I don't like the name, is Gamper. Maybe Gamper is a bit better than that.
Gamper
tactic, yeah.
Who's Gamper?
Gamble Hooper. Gamper.
Yeah.
It's better.
Gamper.
It's a Gamper. I think this is a game that it suits having both of those players on the paddock at the same time. The Ndrua are quite a physical, fast side. So him Gamble and Hooper work really well together there. But do they want to bring in a slightly bigger body with Harris or Gleeson? It's tough. No, they had them both on the bench, which was a bit of a surprise as well. So it depends if we're going to carry 2 back rowers on the bench. When
didn't work very well, did it?
Anyway, yeah. Was that?
I said it didn't work very well, did it?
No.
Look, I could also see them putting Hugh Sinclair in at lock, just for the mobility and the work rate that he has as well. I think that Taleni Stu's a big body, but I just don't think he quite had the mobility and physicality around the park. I can see you shaking your head, but we'll push on because I'm sure you won't have anything positive to say. And then I think the other thing for the Tars is really they just need to work out how to get Parisi and Feketi into the game a little bit more. I thought Parisi looked a little bit underdone coming back from injury, so really that's massive for them.
Yeah, look, I think the thing was the Brumbies utilised their Wallabies very well and eased them into the game. The Waratahs just threw them in the deep end, and Parisi and Nwangani didn't have the impact that we're used to for them. They didn't seem to pass right. So if Nwangani on the right wing, pass the bloody ball right.
Your best wing is on the left wing with Jorgo, so who cares?
But so there was another thing. This week, does Jorgensen deal very well with the likes of Rotumanda? Or do we see Peach come straight back in? I think Peach is the choice there.
So do I.
Physical, strong man. And
it's hard to drop a man after his man of the match, so I just don't think you should ever do it. I think you got to earn the right, and he's man of the match, mate. Give him an opportunity.
You got to ease the man into his career. I don't think you need to throw him in the deep end. He's had a success game 1. Doesn't mean you need to wait for him to fail miserably before you move him to the bench. He's a man who should be on the bench with very good wingers. So I think you can ease him in and by giving him a crack off the bench again this week. But Peach and Nwangani should be the starting wingers.
And the Waratahs are bulked up. The draw are going to make them run for 80 minutes straight. How's this one going to go?
Oh, geez, I'm going to say the Tars because I really want the Tars to win. But, you summed that up pretty well. The Waratahs bulking up is probably not the ideal thing for them in this matchup. So they're going to have to be very physical in D and working and communicating very, very well between each other. And I think the centres is where that control will come from for them, plus their double open side flanker kind of role. So I'm going to say the Tars will get a win here, but I think it'll be tight. They'll win by 5.
Yeah, I do think it will be tight as well, particularly with I think the Indroa could be dominant in the set piece, which is pretty freaking scary. So I'm going to say the Tars by 2 points. They'll scrape home, and the Indroa will really push them. On to Sunday's games, we got Blues versus the Brumbies, probably the pick of the bunch for this week. New injuries, you got Akira Ioane should be out with a knee injury. Lockie Lonergan missed the week with illness, so we expect he might be back. And Connell McInerney got concussed in about 2 minutes in this match as well, so obviously unlikely to get a run considering that. And also returning, you have Tommy Robinson and Alex Hodgman both missed round 1 with illness, so you think they're both a decent shot.
Yeah, look, the question for us is Hodgman is back. Or Harry, you've highlighted something here. The Brumbies are looking for revenge after the controversial semi-final loss. Yes, it was controversial. Yes, I believe the Brumbies deserve the win, but we won't go into too much depth there. If Hodgman's back, where do we see Offa play? Does Offa shift to the tight head? Do we see him tight head, loose head? Where do we see him, Harry? And who misses out? Personally,
I think when you look at the rest of their bench, they've got the next choice loose head. If he shifted back across, is Josh Fusitua, who was on the bench last week. And the second choice tight head is Marcelo Renata. So I think Marcelo Renata, obviously the more established player there, I think it makes the most sense to play Offa and Hodgman at loose head. So I think that's what will probably happen.
Yeah, it's fair. And Big Sauce, he had a breakout season a few years ago, Robinson. Do we see him come straight back in and start and replace Suafoa? Or do we see someone like James Tucker get a crack as well in the locks?
And the actual lock is a dying breed in Super Rugby. Big Sauce and Cameron Salfoa are both loose forwards. So a Salfoa playing 6 and 8, of course, for the NRC all the way through. I think it was in North Harbour. And then Biggie Sauce. I don't know how he's become Biggie Smalls. Biggie Sauce. Yeah, Biggie Sauce, mate. Come on, you knew that. He's obviously very similar. I expect. I didn't think Soafo played that well. Obviously, yellow carded, maybe not entirely his fault, but just not that impactful. So I think Big Sauce straight in to start.
I agree.
On the bench, I'd leave Tucker on the bench as well.
The Super Rugby is a fast game at the moment. I think that's the right call, Robinson, to come in. How do we get Clark more involved? Or do we just not need to when Talia is playing like he plays?
You don't need to, mate. The stats say what they need to say, right? Like, I guess you got to watch who the competition is up against. Corey Toole versus Mark Talia, or Andy Muirhead versus Caleb Clark. Either way, mate, he's a big man, big, powerful, fast man versus small, I would say brave men, but geez, that's two scary matchups.
I was going to say, do we push Tom Wright to a wing? Not that he's that good at defence, but he's a bit bigger body, and then maybe you can do someone like a Debrasini at fullback if you want to shift Lolesio into 10.
I don't think Tom Wright's that much bigger, mate. I don't think that makes any difference whatsoever. You can look it up. But look, the only other thing is, there was some real praise for Bodie Barrett last week. I thought he was solid, kicked well, played his role, but I don't think he offered the same dynamic attack that we know from Bodie when he's at his best. I don't like Bodie completely underplaying his hand. I think he needs to be a threat himself. So probably just needs to run a little bit more would be my only 2 cents as well. And I think you agree.
Yeah, no, I think he was good, but he didn't need to overplay his hand in that match.
He clearly didn't. They put 60 points on him, so you can't be too critical, can you?
No, he didn't need to. So, but he is at his best, and the Blues are at his best when he is taking the ball to the line. And this defensive line for the Brumbies, may ask a few more questions. So he might need to be a bit more of a threat ball in hand, which we all know he can be.
I just want to touch on the massive Tom Wright at 186 centimetres. He is a big boy, 98 kilos. He might just flatten Caleb Clark.
Let's compare him to the 183 centimetre, 84 kilo Muirhead, or Tommy
178 centimetres for Corey Toole, 85 kilos.
So I'm 100% right. Tom Wright is much bigger.
Oh, mate, they're all tiny. It makes no difference. And if you put Debrasini in fullback to try and chase those two down, he's just going to get run around. So it makes no difference.
They might run over him too.
No, mate. The only way that the Blues can win this game, Brumbies can win this game with the form that the Blues were in last week, is they have to have some intense line speed, Bodie Barrett to kill his heel, and never, ever let the ball get to Mark Delaire or Caleb Clark.
There is 2 words that can win this for the Brumbies, and that is Ikitau, Valentini. They're the 2 words that can win this. Maybe Samu. We can throw Samu in there as well. But, geez, this is going to be very, very tough. And these top players for the Brumbies are going to have to be on the ball, that's for sure. Early signs is that Frost is their number 1 lock. We had Swain on the bench last week. We had your mate, Cater Neville, starting to be
correctly pronounced.
Yeah, to see Cater and Neville stay there. Do we see Swain come in and be a little bit aggressive and take, the defensive line up to the Blues a little bit more this week?
Look, I think they'll probably stay the same as what they had last week. I think that's probably their top choices at the moment. But speaking of changes, obviously the Brumbies played a lot of experience on the bench last week. They had Slipper, White, Lolesio in particular, all coming off the bench. I suspect they'll start this week now that they've been eased into Super Rugby. And they're going to trust the backup guys to bring it home as well, to be fair. But Slipper's going to be needed to try and match up against Nepo Laulala. I was obviously a big fan of Shoppy getting his first start at Loosehead, and I thought he had an exceptional game. But Nepo Laulala is a big ask for a young prop. So Slips to start all day, every day to start with, and that way Shoppy can have the weaker shoulders of Renata or something like that in the back end. And then I think the other one for me was Rory Scott. I thought didn't have a fantastic game. And I think Luke Reimer has gone from strength to strength every time he's played for the Brumbies. So I'd probably start Reimer as well. Yeah,
it's a bit disappointing from Scott. Reimer had some positive matches throughout the last couple of years, so it's not a bad thing to give him a shot. Don't forget, we've also got the ability to shift Samu into 7 at chances and bring someone else into the back row as well. But yeah, I think Reimer hopefully is quite a physical back rower for them as well.
Yeah, my worry is that they don't really have a ready-made solution. Maybe Jerome Brown could partner. Pete Samu is probably the next best. Otherwise, you're looking, you're down to Ed Kennedy, Charlie Cale. There's not really established options there.
Brown's not a bad shout, but yeah, there's a bit of competition for that third back row spot for the Brumbies, and I think if you're not being successful, do they pick and stick, or do we actually see some rotation there? And I mean, in the past they've rewarded form, and there's no form there at the moment.
God, they could go for Tom Hooper starting, couldn't they? All right, what's your tip? Come on, biggest game of the week. How's it going to go?
Blues are going to get the win, unfortunately, and they're going to win by 6. It's going to be relatively close.
You're an absolute piece of work. I think it's going to go the other way. I think the Blues are better than last year. As I said in the preseason, I think the Brums are not as good, although they did really prove me wrong against the Tars last week. But I think the Blues are going to get it done by about 10.
So 4 points different. You're just going to go the other way, and you get 4 points different.
Completely different, 10-point win.
Let's go to the final game of the week, and that's Force versus the Reds. The injury front for the Force, Folau Fainga, his Achilles tendon issue. Harry, how long do we think he's going to be out for? Do we have any confirmation?
Yeah, well, let me go through all these guys in one, because it's probably my first big point. Folau Fainga and Manasa Mataele both pulled during the week because they have Achilles tendon issues. So I don't believe, there's no suggestion that they've ruptured their Achilles, which means they're probably overload issues. They're probably Achilles tendinopathies, which means that they've been flogged for running. Then you had Feliti Kaitu'u and Sam Spink both pull their hammy in the first game of the year. Michael Wells with a little ankle injury, he'll play. But the first 4, to lose 4 guys in a game to what looks like overload injuries, or definitely that been a big component of it, I've got some real worries about how hard the Force were pushing late in their preseason, because that's not a very good sign. On that as load management, I think they're not massively likely for this week for Mataele and Fengar, and obviously the other 2, almost no chance with acute hammy tears. But that's a worry for me. They've got their planning wrong, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a big concern. There was no new injuries to Reds players, but we might have some returning players with James O'Connor from his ankle, Luke Jones, much needed person in the lock from his neck injury, Liam Wright from his concussion, we're hoping will be back, and Jock Campbell also from his ankle. That is a lot coming in from the Reds that was lacking some guidance, I think, potentially last week. So I think there's some big ins for them. For the Force, I think that's seriously concerning. Do we see them keep dropping like flies? Please, I hope not. But the big thing for me, really, for the Force was the only question that Thrush is the answer to is, what do you call Candida fungal infection of the vagina? He is not the man for them. He should not be the solution. It is very concerning that they're saying he is the savior of the season and that they're wanting to sign him on for the rest of the year. I like Thrush. Yes, I know he's been there for a while. Harry, you're pulling some weird faces. But he is really not the man for them in the future. And there's a real concern about the depth of the locks. Surely someone else is there that they can bring in. Hopefully, we've got McCauley out, we've got Rodder out. Where's Will Sankey? I don't care who it is. Get someone in the locks, or maybe we see Pugh get in there. I know he has played lock in the past. He's not a big man, but he can definitely fill that void. We don't need a 37-year-old, being someone that they're expecting to rely on week in, week out.
Yeah, I mean, and there's chat that he might even be starting next week. Like that's the takeaway. He scored that try. Good on him. Like, love the story. Absolutely brilliant from him. Second only to Johnny Ulungia, who is just freaking amazing coming back, playing 75 minutes for the Brums. But I just don't see it. I think it's digging the bottom of the barrel, scraping the bottom of the barrel, to be honest, against any solid team. But mind you, the opposition, the other options right now are players like Kalapu, who are just very young, very inexperienced as well. So I think they need to find a solution fast. If it's me, I'm buying a player. I'm looking everywhere. and I'm buying a new player as an injury replacement that's in his late 20s, experienced, maybe like I don't know, Rory Arnold, if you got the budget, come on, dig up the millions, boys.
Yeah.
But I don't think there is another option, to be honest with you. I think there's big question marks there. And on the flip side, talking of age players, I thought Tony Pulu looked good coming off the bench, and his partner in the outside back, been elevated from the bench, I should say, Zach Kibarigi. I like the cut of his jib. I thought he looked pretty good, the ex-Wasp player. He looked exactly like Pulu, I got to say. But maybe that's why we thought Pulu looked good as well, because every time they ran, we just assumed it was him.
Yeah. He needs to find a way to get himself involved a little bit more for sure. The other question with Spink out, who do we see? 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink.
Anyone but Pool Boy. That's my call. Anyone but Pool Boy.
Pool Boy, yes. Pool Boy was very, very tall, very, very skinny. That's everything I can tell you about him from the weekend. I personally probably would put Kunsul at 13. He is physical. He's a smart player, and give him a chance to play there. But there's something missing for me, in that centre combination and that 10, 12, 13 combination.
They're all 10s, mate. That's the problem. You got 3 10s.
They had Spink and he's gone. So maybe they bring Matteelli, the other Matteelli, in and just get him involved. Geez, please get him involved.
Yeah, or maybe you could put like Chase in there and bring Jake Strawn back at fullback. Wouldn't mind something like that.
Potentially play there as well, but
yeah. Anyway, they've got to go searching to find the answers to this. It's scary to have 2 big questions, positional questions in week 2. On the flip side, you got the Reds. As we said, we've got a few guys coming back. Liam Wright, I suspect he has to come back via the bench. I know he's a co-captain, but Sarah Uru was excellent, and I think Luke Jones will be pushed to lock. I would say pretty quickly. I thought they were pretty. Let's be honest, I thought they were very, very poor in the locks for the Reds. So I think both, Luke Jones straight in. There's also talk of James O'Connor not playing at 10. So, they said there's 3 other options or 3 reasons why they might change him. Where would you play him? 12, 15? You're not putting him at 15, Patai's been great. I don't think you put him at 12 because you got 3 good options at centre. Is there another position you would play him?
No, you play him at 10. And
100%.
You have Liner come off the bench. Look, the thought process there is obviously if you put him at 12, you shift Hunter out and you're developing Liner, but then we're hurting the likes of Henry, in the centres, or potentially Fluke in the centres if we have someone like Vunivalu coming back in. Like, it doesn't make sense for me, like shifting Jock around as much as you like to help whoever it was best the week before doesn't make any sense. He's got to be the 10 for them, and he's got to be the guy that steers the ship if they want to have a successful year. And I think Liner showed that he needs time. He needs to be given some time in the back end of matches. So, maybe it's the last 10, 15 they can shift Jock around and see how it goes, but it is not the start. It's
just very hard carrying a specialist 10 on your bench, but I guess Jock's flexibility, James O'Connor's flexibility does help. You've got to remember as well, they might have Jock Campbell pushing back into the outside backs as well. So there's some real depth in the outside backs. I think in the end, Josh Fleet probably ends up on the bench, which means that they can put one of Geordie Pattaya, who I believe should probably start at fullback. I thought he was fantastic, and Jock Campbell on the wing. But mind you, I've never seen Campbell have a good game on the wing. So lots of questions there, but that brings us to the tip, Nels. Who are you going for and why?
Reds, things are coming together. Better for them. Reds are going to win this by 12. I think, seriously, I'm very, very nervous about some of the questions. If Matteelli is there, different. But without Matteelli, I think it's 12 points. If Matteelli is there,
I hope Matteelli's there.
Matteelli is there. Put me down as a draw. It's going to be hard to go either way.
He's worth 2 tries, but out wide, so they only kick one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I like it. I think it'll be closer. I think the Reds are going to be really, I don't know. I think their confidence will be knocked around, but mind you, they're confident against Aussie teams. So yeah, I will pick the Reds as well, but probably tighter. I'd say by 6 points.